You know, ladies and gentlemen, the beautiful thing about what he was saying is that it was he who was saying that. It was not Pussy Riot, because Pussy Riot is in the prison and their mouth is shut. And they can't say this, because they do not have access to any channels through which they could continue the revolution that they started through the act of coming into the church where they protested publicly against the oppression that the current regime still imposes on their people. So what we're basically telling you today are 4 main points. Firstly, we've been in prison for too long. You know, we believe that going to prison and getting arrested was the right move, but now we've been there for too long, and now our message is dying away because nobody can listen to us, because our mouth is shut. Secondly, we'll talk about how people are losing faith into any change, because what they see is that their favorite role models are shut in prison and they can't do anything, and there is no, hope for the future for any change. Thirdly, we'll talk about how this is actually going to affect the ways of creating networks abroad, and how this is going to spark some support from abroad. And fourthly, we'll talk about how this is going to create a new leadership that is needed for the movements which are currently operating in Russia. So firstly, we've heard that staying in prison is a type of protest. We believe that it is up to a certain point, right? And we've been in prison for almost a year. We've seen that people already perceive us as martyrs, and that we have done this in the first place, and we were willing to oppose the government in this way, although we knew that we were going to go there in the first place. What people, however, need is the exposure to the new messages, that we see something that is going on with the message, not that Pussy Riot, as we are stuck there and can't even communicate with people and try to tell them no, not all the hope is lost, that you still need to fight on, that you need still to go on. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that at this point, it is not anymore, no thank you, the message of whether we are going to stay in prison is going to enforce people's thoughts about us. In fact, we believe that our fans would like us to be free, and would like us to hear from us what we want to do next, and how we're going to inspire other people in the future. So we believe that this is the essential flaw they made in their argument. They assume that staying for the whole time in the prison is a requirement for this message to be successful. We believe that people do not perceive it as such. Secondly, we believe that they told us that we would not be the Russians, like the real people, if we left the country. Let's Alexander Solzhenitsyn was a great dissident in Russia. I'm pretty sure that all the Russians know him very well. And I read some of his books, such as Gulag Archipelago or The One Day of Ivan Denisovich. It's actually the books that showed me how evil the regime was at the time. And these are the books that showed Europeans how evil the regime was. But without him emigrating in the first place, nobody would ever get to see these messages. And you would never have the support for anti-communist struggle from outside the way you had. Because him being shot somewhere in prison in Russia would not help anyone. Because nobody would even remember him. Because he would become a number the same way Pussy Riot is becoming a number on the long sheet of people who are successfully deleted by the Russian government. And the list will get longer unless we escape from the prison, and unless we will continue to sparkle the opposition abroad. So basically, what we're going to tell you now, firstly, a lot of the rebuttal was basically included in the first point of why we have been in the prison for too long. Before I move to the second point, I'll take pause.
Just a couple of facts about Solzhenitsyn. He was never choose to go to West. He was repulsed by the Soviet government to the West. First, second of all, he never break the jail. It was his term, and when the term ends, he lived here. So actually, he never chose to run away from the system.
Well, all right.
He said that this system could be...
Order!
So he was repulsed of Russia. Well, I said that's a lie. He was basically given an option. You either go away, we'll kick you out, or you're going to die in gulags. That's what he was given the choice. It was not like, you need to leave now. Of course, he could have stayed, and he could have fought in that way. But he, as opposed to Pussy Riot, now was aware of the fact that that's not going to lead to anything. So basically, let me move to the second point of why people are losing faith into the government. As I already mentioned, it's the list that is getting longer. It's the people that are thinking that the Russian government is omnipresent and that it has all the force to basically quiet and shut down anyone who dares to rise against them. What we see right now is not like a continuing change towards like more people spreading this, because people, no thank you, are afraid. So what people need to see is this action, this single action, as a symbol of someone quitting the the oppression of the government, right? Since this is a very strong, symbol for a lot of people, no thank you, in itself. People need to know that it is possible to escape the omnipresence of the Russian government. So we believe that this is why the single protest of the single action of leaving from the prison would allow people to regain some faith that it is able to cheat the government, that it's able to, escape their hands which are currently everywhere. No, now to the more important arguments. Thirdly, why is it more efficient in building opposition abroad? So we see as a great example the feminine movement, the girls from Russia, from Ukraine, which you all know because there's a lot of fancy pictures of them being naked online with a lot of influential politicians, such as, for example, last week there was a nice picture of one of these naked girls with President Putin, and he actually looked quite amused at seeing her. But what I'm trying to say is that these girls, they escaped Ukraine, right? They didn't go to prison, even for a second. And I would say that if they went to the prison, at least for some time, their message would be stronger. But nevertheless, they're the most successful, group from Ukraine, which is currently able to inspire some change abroad. Because what are they doing? Is they're basically doing the same way as Pussy Riot. But instead of Pussy Riot, they are in the media every week. They are constantly in the eyes of the people who see that there is this struggle, that it's not dead, that there is hope. So we believe that the same way Pussy Riot would be, as we would go outside and would be able to change and found these new fractions. So this protest would spread to many other countries. So that there would be some outside pressure on Russia which would be exerted. Because for now, it's just like inside Russia. It's only an interior affair of Russia. So this is why the Western countries do not want to meddle with it too much. But what we need to show is that this is present, even in the European continent. The people can see in their own countries that there is change going on, so that the governments of Europe, for example, have some more motivation to exert political pressure on Russia and to try to achieve this change. Lastly, why is it important to inspire the leadership inside? Well, what we're basically saying is, and this might sound really ridiculous, we as Pussy Riot can't even take a cell phone and call our friends who would be willing to do similar actions in Russia. And this is why the movements in Russia would like to continue action are currently lost. Because the only possible leader, the only group which was willing to take the risk and go to prison is now gone. So what we believe is through this way we could show and lead these other groups within Russia, although it would be from outside. We believe that by running away we would simply be more efficient in spreading our message, and we would not be on the long list of groups which were shut down by the Russian government. Thank you.